He went from being a detective in New York City Police Department to being a town councilman. He's a volunteer fireman, and now he is a new member of Congress. Our guest today, I'm personally speaking, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Msgr. Jim Lisante, and Congressman Anthony D'Esposito joins me now. Congressman D'Esposito represents New York's 4th Congressional District on Long Island in the United States House of Representatives. In Congress, Anthony serves on the House Committee on Homeland Security, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, and the House Committee on House Administration. Prior to being elected to Congress, Congressman D'Esposito served as a councilman in the town of Hempstead from 2016 to 2023, where he worked across party lines to deliver municipal services to the nearly 800,000 residents of America's largest township. Earlier in his career, Anthony fought crime on the streets of New York as an NYPD detective for more than a decade. In addition to his public service work, Congressman D'Esposito volunteers his time as both a member and leader in many civic, fraternal, and philanthropic organizations. He's a volunteer fireman. He's a graduate of Chaminade High School on Long Island and earned a bachelor's degree in English from Hofstra University. He's here with us today to talk about his life, his career in public service, his Catholic faith, and the values that matter the most to him. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome to Personally Speaking, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito. We're here with Congressman D'Esposito, and I'm delighted to have him on. And Congressman, you should know that even though I'm in Massapequa, I vote in West Hempstead. So I did my part for you, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
The whole family is West Hempstead based, so I wanted to do that. I wanted to ask you, I just mentioned my family, but I'm always intrigued by family of origin and how it got people to be the way they are. Your own family, your own parents, when you look back, what did they do right in raising you?
Listen, they brought me and my brother up. My mom came here from Puerto Rico with her 7 brothers and sisters in 1955. My dad was born in Rockaway Beach. He came from a hardworking family. My grandfather was the custodian at St. Camillus in Rockaway. My grandmother cooked for the nuns in the convent. My grandparents on both sides were hard workers. They wanted to make sure that their children had a better way of life. And it wasn't always easy. They worked very hard to put food on the table, worked very hard to make sure that people were happy. But, my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 96. I think my grandmother lived to 94. And one of the things that he always said was, he was never a rich person. I don't think in his 96 years he ever owned a brand new car. But where he was wealthy was family and the people that surrounded him, his grandchildren that loved him and cared about him, his great-grandchildren. So what did they do right? I think they made sure that we knew that our feet were firmly planted. They showed us how important hard work is, how important dedication and commitment to your community is, being involved in the community, whether it's being serving on the village board or being a member of the fire department or volunteering at Sacred Heart and making sure Monsignor Titoni is happy. Whatever it was that we did, they made sure that we understood that family and faith and community were paramount. And, I think it's one of those things. It's a real benefit growing up in a small community like Island Park, where, there are so many, I guess, people look at it and they're like, everyone knows everything that you do. There is truth to that. But growing up in a small community really helps you learn the value of how important community is. I speak to people all the time, people that I'm friends with that grew up not that far away, let's say Merrick, and they say, they come to Island Park, they see our San Gennaro feast, and they're amazed that an operation like that is underway with all volunteers, people that just do it because they love their church and they love their community. So when you ask what did they do right, they did a lot right. They taught us how to work hard, how to be honest and loyal, and make sure that when you give somebody your word, that's it.
What a great legacy that is. Before we went on the air, Congressman mentioned he's just returned from Israel. Congressman, why were you there, and what did you learn along the way?
So we visited Israel. We took a flight from Andrews Air Force Base, landed in Shannon, Ireland. So as soon as I landed in Shannon, I gave Congressman Pete King a call to let him know we were in the motherland and wish him well. He had some surgery recently,
Yeah.
so myself, Congressman Garbarino, Congressman Lalota, and Speaker McCarthy reached out to him just to say hello and give him our regards. And then from Shannon, we went to Jordan. We met with the King of Jordan and talked about the relations between the United States and Jordan, who obviously in the Middle East is an ally. From Jordan, we then flew to Tel Aviv, and we spent about 48 hours, in the Holy Land. We were there. The speaker wanted to make it a point that his first international trip as Speaker of the House, he brought a bipartisan delegation to Israel to reinforce that Israel is our greatest ally, that we are going to continue to make sure that they have the resources that they need to continue to be that great ally. And he was the first, actually the second Speaker of the House since Newt Gingrich to speak at the Knesset. Which was it was definitely an experience. I got to see along the streets of Jerusalem. I did run into a lot of 4th Congressional District constituents. We even got to spend some time with Ambassador Friedman, who obviously was the ambassador to Israel under President Trump, and was, spent a lot of time in the 5 towns. His family lives in the 5 towns. So we were there really, in a mission to let everyone know that perhaps across Washington, D.C. and maybe the administration of the president is not showing the love and commitment that perhaps they should to Israel. We wanted to make sure that they knew. And again, this was a bipartisan trip. There was Democrats and Republicans, and we wanted not only Netanyahu, but the Speaker of the Knesset and the President of Israel to understand that we were in support of them, that we appreciate their friendship and their relationship, and we're going to do everything that we can to not only promote but maintain and expand peace in the Middle East.
For those who don't know, the congressman, aside from traveling the world with the Speaker of the House, also does a lot locally. And you touched on it a moment ago, but I wondered what went into your decision to be a volunteer firefighter in your community.
So I think it goes back to, the first question was, what did your parents do right when they raised you? And that was to reinforce that that commitment to community, to know that, the community is not there for you. You're really there to make the community a better place. And I think that what I love about the volunteer fire service across Nassau County and across Long Island is it has so much tradition, has so much legacy. I mean, the people who walk the halls of many firehouses across Long Island really were the ones who made Long Island what it is today in some fashion or another. You look at leaders in communities throughout Long Island, and many of them have roots back to the volunteer fire service. And it's one of those places where I joined as soon as I could when I was 18. I spent now over 20 years as a member of the fire service. I served as chief of department from 2009 to 2016. And some of my closest friends and the people that I trust most are people and individuals that I met being part of the fire service. And, when it comes to running for office and government and politics, we are a huge family. And to have, fire departments across this district and across Long Island supporting you and rooting you on from home makes a huge difference.
Congressman D'Esposito is very involved too in Congress and being concerned about American security and particularly American borders. Now, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Officially, our church is, pro-migrant, and that's wonderful, saying, the stranger should always be made welcome. At the same time, I know that letting literally millions of people into our country with no plan, no jobs, no education, no sifting through to see who's coming in is not only bad for us, but it's also bad for them. Do you have, I know it's new, you're new in Congress, but do you have any insight into what we need to do to fix the disaster of the southern border?
So I think it's this week when we get back, we're going to be rolling out, part of our commitment to America was an economy that's strong, a government that's transparent, and a nation that is safe.
Mm.
And we have been working hard. I was honored to have been chosen to serve as a member of the House Homeland Security Committee. I serve as chairman of the subcommittee for emergency management and technology. So over the last 100 and so days, we've worked in a bipartisan fashion. We had the markup last week, which was probably about 16 hours long. We went into almost 3 a.m. There was great debate. And I think what we have come up with and what we're going to submit to the floor next week as part of our border bill, what you said is right. You know, as a practicing Catholic, I understand that, you know, we want to give people the opportunity to come to this country and realize the American dream. The way that I look at it is I want people to come to this country. I want to give them the resources that they need to have that American dream. All I want to do is make sure that they come through the front door.
Yeah.
And that is something that we've been missing, especially during this administration. I mean, we've heard it time and time again where the president and the vice president have said the border is secure. They said that they have operational control of the border. Secretary Mayorkas appeared in front of the Homeland Security Committee a few weeks ago. And when I was questioning him about operational control, he said that he looked at it through a certain lens. And quite frankly, I'm not sure what that lens is because it doesn't make any sense. And you know, over the last 48 hours, the president has sent troops to the southern border to help maintain control. So if the border is secure and there's operational control, I'm not sure why he's now decided to send troops there. But nonetheless, we've put together a bill that I believe addresses a lot of the issues. It includes a lot of investment in our Customs and Border Patrol agents, incentives for people to stay there and continue to work so that we don't lose that institutional knowledge. One of the things that we face right now in our southern border and really all our borders is that the Customs and Border Patrol, they're not happy with their leadership. They're not happy with the leadership of Secretary Mayorkas. And it's much like the New York City Police Department. You know, I spent 16 years there as a proud NYPD detective. And when morale is low, there's a real issue. You know, when the NYPD was facing those very dark days during the Bill de Blasio era, when we, you know, lost Ramos and Lou in Brooklyn, there was a certain feeling, a certain, you know, thickness in the air when you went out on patrol that you just weren't safe, that people were really out for the police. And knowing that your so-called leaders didn't have your back sent a clear message to the men and women and the troops that work the streets every day. And that's exactly how our Customs and Border Patrol agents feel. You know, I've visited the border now twice. I've met and spoken to their union leadership, and they're in a tough place. And we are losing good agents because they just don't want to do the job anymore, and they're either moving on to other federal agencies or finding local jobs in local law enforcement to bring their knowledge to. So we've included in the bill to make sure that we're keeping some of those agents. We've invested in technology so that we could really begin to understand and keep control of the areas along our border that we've seen a large increase in illegal migrants. We've invested in technology and manpower, so to increase the agents and to, again, like we said, we want people to have that American dream. But if we don't have the resources to process those asylum cases, then, you know, we are nowhere. So we're going to increase the funding to make sure that those that work along the border, those that work in federal agencies, can provide more to those asylum seekers. There's also, you know, reference in there to holding some of our the NGOs accountable, that you can't just be giving federal dollars away willy-nilly and not expect any oversight. So we're going to really take a look at where the money's going and make sure that the investment that the federal government is making is going to really provide for those asylum seekers coming to this nation.
Congressman D'Esposito mentioned a few moments ago his background in police. I am the son, grandson, nephew, and cousin of NYPD people. And in fact, my dad was a detective as well. But I mention that because you know and I know that it's not an easy time to be a police officer. And I remember in the last mayoral campaign in New York, that woman, Maya, who was running for mayor, was for defunding the police. At the same time, she had private security for her block. And the hypocrisy was striking to me. But I mentioned that because I hope that we're rediscovering a love and an appreciation for those in blue. How do we win back that special operational cooperation between the community and the police? And how much are police being demonized unfairly? I think a lot, but I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I agree with you. They are being demonized, and most of the time unfairly. I'll start by saying, nobody dislikes a bad cop more than good cops.
Right.
So, there are bad people in every career path. There's bad lawyers, there's bad accountants, there's
Bad priests,
bad priests, there's
Yeah.
bad cops, there's bad firefighters, there's bad politicians. But to paint an entire group with a broad brush is something that this nation cannot continue to do. I believe that building that trust between community and police, it is a mutual respect thing. And I think that in many communities across this nation, we are doing that. We are blessed here in Nassau County to have great leadership in Patty Ryder, who has really over the last 3.5 years dedicated so much time to building that trust, to building that cooperation, to making sure that people understand that the police and community need to work together. I spent most of my career in probably one of the most violent square miles in New York City, and I would say one of the top 10 most violent square miles in the country. And I wouldn't have been able to do the work that I did. I wouldn't have been able to solve the murders, to handle the gang violence, to take guns off the street if we didn't have that cooperation between community and police. So very often we hear, it's become a buzzword, especially from the left. We need more community policing. We need more community policing. There's always been community policing. It just wasn't focused on. And when you get to these, it's one of the things that I've been talking about recently when it comes to police. And we've obviously seen, and this is going into a little bit of a different topic, but comes back to law enforcement. We've seen where there has been so much talk about assault weapons and banning assault weapons, but nobody's focusing on the gun violence in communities where people are mowed down each and every night. And we've had this conversation in person, the disastrous criminal justice reform and bail laws that were put into place, the discovery laws, the fact that judges don't have discretion. And when the Democrats in the state legislature tried to explain as to why they were doing this, and listen, I understand wholeheartedly. I've seen it. I've seen when people get stuck in that justice system and they can't get out because they can't afford to. And there needs to be a reform there. But to put reform in place and never once have a conversation with someone who actually wrestle someone in the street to take a gun out of their hands, to the someone who puts handcuffs on people, that's someone who has walked the beat. They never had those conversations. And now the people who are suffering the most at the hands of the criminal justice reform and the bail reform are the minority communities. That's where body bag after body bag after body bag are coming out of. And those individuals, those neighbors, they want safe communities. They want to work with their community. They don't want to hear about defunding the police. They want more police because they want to be able to walk out of their building and go to the bodega and get a gallon of milk without getting clipped with a stray bullet.
Totally. I agree with you completely. Congressman, I want to go to another sensitive topic. We touched on a bunch of them already, but when Congressman Lee Zeldin was our guest a few months before his run for governor, when we got onto the issue of the right to life and pro-choice, he said, well, no matter what I feel, and he's pro-life, he said, nonetheless, in New York, it's kind of a closed issue because it's such a liberal state. They're going to have unrestricted abortion, nothing we can do. And I know sometimes around the country that the Republican Party has said, what can we do? What can we do? But it seems to me every poll that I've read indicates that a majority of Americans don't like the 9-month right. A majority of Americans don't want their taxpayer money used to pay for somebody else's abortion. A majority of Americans believe that their minor daughter, the parent should at least know if she's having an abortion. What I'm saying is I think there's so many life issues where most Americans stand with those who are pro-life. I know, again, you're in your first term in Congress, but you've been around politics for a long time. Is there a certain wisdom to also not being afraid to address the issue?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with what Lee has said across the last few years, in that in New York, not much is going to change. I have, flat out said that I would not support a nationwide abortion ban simply, for that reason. But yes, I do believe that there is an opportunity for us to work and understand and focus on the fact that, late term abortions are an issue that and it's something that should not be allowed. unless there's some serious health issues that, have people's life in jeopardy.
Right.
And I agree with you. Any polling that you read, most people agree with that. But unfortunately, in the world that we live in, the other side of the aisle has made this a real issue and has, quite frankly, made up complete lies and fabrications about what we think and what we believe. When we talk about social issues, including abortion, I saw during my campaign when, obviously after the Supreme Court leak and the Roe v. Wade issue, abortion did become an important issue, and it should be. But right now, a majority of the people in New York and Long Island and on Long Island, what they're focused on is they're focused on the cost of living. They're focused on pocketbook issues. They're focused on traveling into New York City and getting on a subway and putting literally their lives in their hands. I mean, when I was campaigning over the 2022 election, I started to realize on the train platforms, I would see people come up the escalators, and so many people were bringing with them these electric scooters. And I thought to myself, what's with the electric scooters? And then I thought to myself, they're traveling into the city with electric scooters because they don't want to go into the subway because they are in fear. So that's what we are focused on. And I will continue to work with my colleagues. I'll continue to stand and with my conservative values and the way that I was brought up. But I do agree with Lee that not much is changing here in New York, and we need to continue to focus on making sure that women are protected. And I said through the campaign, I spent my life protecting women. When I was in the police department, hunting down rapists and domestic violence offenders, and those are the things that I'm going to continue to do.
I just would say, Congressman Lipinski from Illinois had been our guest a couple of years ago, and as a Democrat and pro-life, he had said, essentially he's being driven out of the party. The intolerance on the other side is amazing, and and I know they're coming after Republicans with this issue. And my concern is just that everything you said I agree with, but I think if we in some way deflect and say, well, I don't want to talk about this because it's not my issue, they're still coming after you. He's going to be anti-choice. He's going to take away women's rights, and I don't want them being able to use this issue. And I think if we could turn around and say, hey, wait a second, you believe it's okay to go into the 8th and 9th month of pregnancy? You want to use my tax dollars to pay for abortion? I just think we've got to stand tall in saying this is kind of crazy. Now, speaking of elections, Congressman, for those who don't know, who are watching and listening to a program like this, the district that Congressman D'Esposito represents, an old friend of mine, Ray McGrath, had been the congressman there. And then after Ray, it essentially went away. It became a Democratic stronghold. No one thought Republicans could win anymore, but Congressman Anthony D'Esposito won. And I'm intrigued to know, first of all, did you expect to win? And why do you think that this retired police officer, town councilman, touched enough lives that district flipped and embraced you?
So, well, I appreciate it. And yeah, this was a district that was in Democrat hands for 25 years. It was Ray McGrath, and then a short stint and then we had Carolyn McCarthy and Kathleen Rice. And it was a seat that in 2020, Joe Biden won by 16 and a half points. We won it by 4. So if you look across the map from sea to shining sea, this district is the biggest flip in the entire country, which also means it's the biggest target. And why do I think that we were able to bring people into our camp? I think it's the way that, I've operated as a member of the Hempstead Town Board. I served as a councilman there for 6.5 years. It's the largest town in the nation, bigger than 7 states by population. And I worked across the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, to deliver fiscal conservative values, make sure that, we didn't raise taxes, make sure that we held the line on taxes, made sure that we treated government like a business. We did more with less. And, when we talk about the issues that were facing the nation in this last election, and quite frankly, they are the same issues that are going to be facing the nation in the 2024 election. People were concerned about their pocketbooks. People were concerned about crime. People were concerned about their quality of life. And the other side of the aisle were wrong on every side of every one of those issues.
Let me end on this Catholic note. I'm always intrigued by the decision people make to put their kids in Catholic education, because I know you're paying high taxes in a place like Long Island, then to also pay tuition is quite a burden. somewhere along the line, your parents made a decision to send you to this wonderful boys' high school, Chaminade High School. Was it worth all their effort, and what did you learn along the way?
I believe it was worth the effort. Listen, my brother, we both went sort of in a different way. He went to West Hempstead High School, and I went to Chaminade. We were both thankfully successful. We both had great education. But yeah, attending Chaminade was an experience. It was something that perhaps while I was there, didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. But thinking back and understanding the sacrifices that my parents made to send me to an institution like Chaminade, the lifelong friends that I've made, the supporters that come from our deep alumni association. It's something that anywhere you go in this world, some road will lead back to Chaminade High School, and I say that all the time. And I know that I'm looking forward next week to welcoming some of my fellow Chaminade alum and current Chaminade students. They're coming down for a few of our alumni are getting inducted to the Supreme Court Bar Association. So there's always a strong Chaminade presence on Capitol Hill, but there's strong Chaminade presence everywhere, and it is a great group to be part of. It is that there's real support there. There's honest conversation, and there's people that understand how hard their parents and others work to get them through there.
Our own wonderful former Senator Alphonse D'Amato is also a graduate of the school as well. It's a wonderful place, great spirit of community and faith. Congressman, I want to thank you for being on, and for our listeners and viewers, you probably picked up that Congressman D'Esposito is not someone who dances away from issues. He's a straight talker. But for me, one of the great blessings you bring to the House of Representatives is that, no offense, I come from a family of lawyers, but I love lawyers, but there's an awful lot of lawyers in Congress, and I like it when someone who comes from, as you do, the world of the police can be there to be a spokesperson for so many of us who are concerned about issues of law and order and want safety for people from every community. And you've actually lived that, and you've made it happen. And now you bring that expertise, that wonderful insight you have into Congress, which I think is badly needed. So thank you for all the good you do. Keep on doing good, and thank you so much for doing our show, Personally Speaking, today, Congressman.
Thanks, Monsignor.
As we end today's program, if you'd like to reach out to me for any reason, you can get me at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. Aside from listening to us on Sirius XM, the Catholic channel, you can also watch us on YouTube by going to Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante. Please hit like and subscribe. We're also, as you probably know, on Facebook at Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante, and now we're also on Instagram at Personally Speaking Podcast. I'm privileged to serve as host and executive producer, Personally Speaking. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.